there, I'm Aditi Surana. I'm a graphologist and a high performance coach. And today on Anxiety No More episode, we have Zarina Poonawalla, who is a peak performance coach. Now it's almost like coaches calling coaches conversation gonna happen, and I really love that aspect because most of the time when people look at their situation and their challenges, we have one or another way of looking at it. The idea to bring different experts on this platform and talk about the same topic from different perspective is for you to have different choices to look at the same problem. For example, we had Amrita, who is an Ayurvedic consultant. Now, when she spoke about anxiety, she looked at it from Vat, Kaf, Dosh perspective. Zarina today will bring her coach angle and she will speak about her take on anxiety. So there she is. So whatever questions you have about anxiety, today they are dedicated to Zarina and she will talk from her perspective. Hi Zarina.
Hi Aditi, thank you for having me.
I love that wall behind you. Oh
Yeah,
my
it's quite a
God.
fascinating one.
It is, yeah. Don't tell me you have done it yourself.
No, it's a
Okay.
wallpaper.
Okay. All right. Very cool.
Yeah,
So
colors
thank you so
always
much.
refreshing, no?
Yes. Thank you so much for being on this conversation. Now, we're going to speak about anxiety from your perspective. And yesterday, when
Right.
we were recording the episode for your podcast, which is Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla, we were figuring
Yes.
out different aspects of anxiety. And I had my take, and you gave a different framework altogether. Can we begin from there, and then we will go and go where the conversation goes?
Okay, so you want me to give you my perspective of anxiety in
Yes,
general?
and what according to you, what can people do when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and the challenges?
Okay. So, first and foremost, Aditi, what I really do understand about anxiety is it's a response to stress. All right. And all of us have something or the other which stresses us out. Stress can be positive, it can be negative. You know, the pressure of an exam, when you're going to give an exam, certain days you're happy about it. You're going to give your best performance, or if you're playing a sport, for instance, you know, you're competitive sports person. However, a lot of times people don't know how to handle their stress and that kind of pressure. And that is the response of your body, your mind, and that converts into something as simple as anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
anxiety by itself, Aditi, I think can be dealt with. But moreover, what really happens is, I think we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, but it's got its physiological aspects. You know, there is a
True.
lot happening with the body, and we're unable to understand what is going on with ourselves.
Mm.
Um, so I believe in a lot of rewiring, you know, reframing of your mind. And it's as simple as this. Of course, we all know that we have the amygdala in the brain, and that is like your security guard. It's telling you
Right.
when to fear, you know, allowing the fear to come in, allowing all these different emotions to flow. I think some people just have the wrong security guard and
Right.
they don't know how to deal with it, and that is the problem. So maybe it's a little bit of brain and neurotransmitter sort of rewiring when you're talking about anxiety.
True.
So yeah, that's
Where it
that's what I
becomes
believe.
where it becomes uncontrollable. So the wiring becomes
Yes.
so entrained that you do not have any control over it. Is where exactly you have
Mhm.
attacks and it becomes something that you believe is
Right.
happening to you and not what you're doing consciously.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people just use these words slightly loose in their conversation, and maybe that's why they don't understand that there is something going on, you know, that there is something changing in your brain, there is some movement happening because of which you feel the way you feel, and it needs
Right.
to be addressed. So for that, I think awareness is very important as to how one perceives anxiety, how one perceives panic attacks, you know,
Sure.
whether it's a general anxiety disorder or it's an episode you're having because of a situation in your life.
Hmm.
So it needs to be recognized in that fashion, I believe.
True. So, do you deal with people with anxiety quite often?
Yes, very often. Very often, yeah.
And what kind,
Yeah.
what is your nature of work? What is the process? What people have to follow?
So one of the thing is naturally people need to be extremely honest and open. Of course, it's discreet, confidential, no hiding, no secrets, simply because until and unless we understand, I'm pretty sure you're a coach, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So until and unless we understand, the transparency and clarity of their thoughts to be able to diagnose and then identify and address the issue
Right.
becomes difficult. So it's nice if from the beginning people can slightly open up. And people who've come with anxiety issues, to me, usually have to do with, I think I would kind of break it down into three parts
Okay.
on average, like that kind of an umbrella. One is a lot of rumination, a lot of overthinking, repetitive overthinking,
True.
just the same thoughts again and again, and most of them are usually negative. So, overthinking sort of leads you to stress and worry, and that leads you to being anxious very
Okay.
often. So, that could be anything. It could be a relationship, it could be financial crunches, it could be getting married, not getting married, having a baby, not having a baby, overthinking on so many different aspects,
Right.
personally or environmentally or professionally.
Right.
And the second one I'd say is comparison. There's constant
Hmm.
comparison people have. And I think, Aditi, let me tell you, this is my first live, by the way. I have another
Really?
one. Yeah, this is my So I am really bad with technology. Just informing you. So my friend and me are doing this live on makeup later today, and that was supposed to be my first. So this is my first. And why I'm
Oh.
mentioning that is because I kind of refrain from a lot of activity on social media because there's a lot of comparison and pressure, you know.
That's true.
And I think a lot of that causes people to feel anxious. There is the constant pressure of what somebody else is doing and whether you're living up to that or not.
I'm smiling a bit because I'm almost living on lives. I'm doing so many lives. So there was a point where people used to ask me, like especially people who are listening constantly initially when lives was just getting started, and we
Right,
started this
right.
anti-anxiety journaling workshop. We are going everywhere possible speaking about it. And that time so many lives were happening. So everybody's like, when do you like sleep and eat? You're just being from one life to another. I'm standing literally. But I totally hear you. People do
No,
have
I've got to learn
comparison.
from you. I've got to learn from you. It's my first. Imagine that 4 months of lockdown are up, and I'm now going live for the first time.
There's
Yeah,
always a first time for things. I'm so happy that today is the day for you. And I'm so happy this is your first one.
I know, totally. Yeah.
No,
So
I
coming
also
back,
feel comparison in that context. Aren't we trained into comparison? Like our schooling system, our overall, I wouldn't even say Indian anymore because even other cultures have this. They constantly push their kids and we push each other by saying that, oh, you can do it. Look at the other person. Have role
hmm
models. Like I don't believe in role models because I constantly feel they set that comparison benchmark and you're constantly unhealthy uh, so-called motivation where people just push themselves whether they're ready or not. So your take
right.
on that.
Um, you're right. The mind is trained, and our mind is not trained. Our parents, our generations before us, they've always kind of put us in a box. We're supposed to fit into that box, or we are sort of outlanders, and we don't fit in, and that makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
So that's where the whole comparison aspect comes from. I mean, we were never taught to be happier people. You will always see if somebody's talking about their problem, like if I'm telling you I have, I have a joint pain, I will usually find somebody else telling me I have joint pain in hands and legs. There's somebody who will not always tell you that, oh, you know what, I'm feeling good about myself, so why don't you try this? So I have realized comparison goes down deep to the level of who's struggling more, who's troubled more, who's anxious more, who has more burdens on their shoulders, even to that level. Because
True.
somehow it seems comparison makes you work faster or makes you work stronger. But in my opinion, competitiveness is good. But this thought process, Aditi, about, we're running a rat race and there's competition. My general response to that is I'm not a rat and I have no race to win. So where am I running? Where is the finish line? So that's how I
True.
look at it, the comparison aspect. And
And
I
in the
think the third
lockdown,
one,
Yeah, in the lockdown, many people got aware themselves about this one particular point that like I'm running all the time. I don't know where this whole thing is leading. So that was like a
right?
big thing for people. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you pause, you realize that your journey is different. You're going to take your own sweet time, maybe slower, but as long as you're consistent, you're getting where you need to get. So there is absolutely zero reason for you to undergo the process that you've been trained to undergo. So you've got to break the cycle somewhere, you know. I guess comparison is that cycle. It puts a lot of
agreed,
pressure on people.
agreed, agreed.
Right,
Third
and
point.
the third one, yeah. So the third one, according to me, is judgment. We're constantly thinking about,
Yes.
yeah, and that's the reason why I mentioned social media has an effect on us. There's this pretty picture on virtual reality we try to put up, and when we see somebody else's picture, we are thinking, "Oh wow, you know, they're living that life. I'm not." You're going back and sulking in your bed. Also, judgment, like I mentioned, judgment in terms of just how people perceive you, what they need out of you, what they
Mhm.
expect out of you. All these things, in my opinion, just a lot of rumination, comparison, and judgment is these are the causing factors of anxiety in a lot
So
of
true.
people.
So true. And most of the time, we don't even realize what we are fighting. So we know that when we walk into the room,
Yeah,
people are judging us, and a part of us is battling that, but we are not aware, and we just get triggered on other things, thinking that that is bothering. The whole complexity comes because we are not clear that we fear judgment or we feel uncomfortable
absolutely.
about it. So, how
Yeah,
to
that's
solve
what I'm
it?
talking
Your take.
about. How to solve it? Okay. First things first, you need to understand what is required out of you as a person for yourself. You know, a large part of ours goes in the fact that this is what my parents want out of me, this is what my spouse wants out of me, this is what I need to do with my life. You want to make people happy, you have to learn to be happy yourself first. If you can't do that, you're not even halfway there. So this self pity and the pity party that people usually throw for
Hmm.
themselves when they get stressed, that is something I feel you need to kind of, you know, suck it up, stand up, and face your fears, because nobody is coming to the pity party after a little while. You're partying alone. So you've
Right.
got to kind of step up in that moment. Um, you need to start with what I think I suggest this to everybody, that of course journalizing is wonderful, but you need to journalize specifically with what you need, what you have, what you want, and similarly what you don't need, what you don't have, what you don't want, right?
So are
I
you
think it
saying
makes a
that
difference.
people can journal about this? Like people can create these
Absolutely.
categories, of course.
Yes, you
I
create
very like
categories.
I really
Mhm.
like the prompts for journaling all the time because the very moment you go and you start only writing your thoughts, it doesn't work because it just becomes like one more sob story that you're narrating to yourself. But what you're saying
Right,
is, can you just repeat that point? What six
what you need.
areas?
Right, what you need, what you have, right, and what you want.
Hmm.
And similarly, in the don't category, what
Right.
you don't need, what you don't have, what you don't want. I feel the reason why people are not able to journal is because, like you mentioned very rightly, I think people have this thought process of journalizing only their, you know, sad thoughts, venting, ranting, writing
Hmm.
about what's not good with life, or, you know, the personal diaries, like we call them.
Right.
But
Right.
so they're not really doing it with the actual understanding of, let's look at what is going on with me and let's try and analyze, identify, and address it. Maybe this
Makes
gives
sense.
them that.
Makes sense.
How do
So
you manage that?
for me, I actually journal with a question. Like that's my
Mm-hmm,
favorite thing to do. So I would come up with any particular prompt, and I would
mm-hmm,
ask. We have created some 21 questions to journal around. And once you pick that up and you start observing your triggers, I feel stepping out of your own situation and observing things is one of the most important areas, which
right.
totally blew some people's minds because they thought, what, how would that help? But it does, because it
Hmm.
really brings you in that position. Second thing, I use graphotherapy, which is using a handwriting stroke to really calm your mind down. We call it flow of thoughts. For
Okay.
some reason, my volume, you can hear my volume, guys?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, people can't hear it. I've been getting comments around that, but I hope you
Okay.
can hear me now. So the second part is graphotherapy, where we actually use handwriting stroke to calm your mind down. So it's kind of a doodling technique. It's a technique which is done, I would say, graphologically. It's not scientific. That's not the only word I would use, but it's more graphologically. So that particular
Mm-hmm.
stroke has a specific effect. Now, when that
Mm.
happens, as we are talking about, there's a mind body coordination with anxiety. So
Yeah.
we bring in body instead of only thinking. Because sometimes, again, you mentioned that when you keep saying the same story, it doesn't work. So to break the story, you require some different kind of programming. And in my experience, that particular stroke could reprogram some parts of wiring and rewiring. So for me, all my
Right.
therapies are based on graphotherapy, and then you physically write the answer to the question that we were talking about. It
Mm-hmm.
works like magic.
It does. Except that I don't know grapho therapy,
Therapy?
so naturally, yeah, I have to go with the more specific questions.
Sure, sure. So I think next time when we do a live again, I will give you some therapies and we will do therapy session together.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. So yesterday we spoke about the 4A model when we were speaking
Yes.
about anxiety. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so one that I truly swear by, this is something that each and every client of mine has to go through at some point. Specifically, I'd say in their preliminary aspect of coaching.
Mm.
Forays, according to me, they're the pillars of your stress, your happiness, your emotions in general, how controlled you are, how out of control you are, how you're managing your life, how you're reaching your goals and you're accomplishing them.
Hmm.
So the forays are like this. The first one is accept. The second one is adjust or adapt. The third
Okay.
one is alter. Alter is change, basically. And the fourth one is avoid, right? So accept, adjust, alter, and avoid. That's
I
the four
really
of them.
liked it. I thought it was so simple and so apt. I really liked it. I think when you
Yeah.
said this, I'm like, we have to talk about this on Instagram Live. So yes, go ahead. Please
I'm
explain.
glad. I'm glad you did. But I really think this works magic in the way I am dealing with my clients, because what happens is, Aditi, a large part of us doesn't understand which situations and which responses in our lives require one of these forays. We're usually
Agreed.
mixing them up. Okay.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we get stressed out, or we're unhappy, rather. So,
True.
for example, let's say, let me take a personal situation where somebody is going through a very rough relationship, a toxic relationship.
Right.
In that situation, people try to adjust, or they accept their spouse or their partner,
Right.
or they try to make a lot of changes, but they don't, that doesn't work. What do you need to do with such a relationship? You walk out, you step
Mm.
out after a point, right? So what do? You avoid this, ignore this problem completely, deal with it, and then let it go. You
Right.
can't live with it. Similarly, when you're at work, all right, you're having this presentation that you need to do with your colleague, and your colleague is slightly narcissistic by nature and has this, ego issue. What do you do with such a colleague? You get all flustered, you want to prove yourself, and you're trying to change the situation in that moment, but it's not going to
Mm.
change.
Mm.
Your colleagues not changing, your job's not changing, your boss is not changing, and you've got to do what you've got to do. So in that moment, you need to accept and adjust, right?
Mm.
So let's say you're migrating to another country. What are you going
Mm.
to do, right? What are you going to do? Change the temperature there, change the weather conditions there,
Sure.
uh,
You
avoid the
adapt.
people there. You adapt. So I guess a lot of our problems come from the fact that we use the wrong A in the wrong situation.
Makes sense. So you literally get into the situation, and when you're journaling, ask yourself, what can you choose?
Right.
How can I, am I supposed to accept the situation, avoid the situation? So are you asking people to run through this, like in terms of as a
Yes.
thinking model? That's really interesting.
Yes, yes. So it really depends if you're coming in with a personal issue,
Mm.
something that is relationship based, or say, for instance, you're having a tough time with your in-laws or with your baby.
Mm.
Now, how are you going to deal with this? Every time you can't have emotional triggers driving you up the wall,
Right.
because That's exactly where the whole anxiety and stress steps in and kind of
Right.
takes so much of you. It consumes you too much. So, yeah, I asked them to make sure that we pick up a couple of situations on hand and see which A they've been using and then figure out which A they actually need to use in that
That's
moment.
so beautiful because, you know, wrong identification of the problem most of the time just breaks everything about your construct about the problem. You think this is a
True.
problem and I'm battling, but if it's a wrong A, as you said, it is of your efforts won't matter. If all you're doing is
True.
avoiding the problem that you're supposed to accept, then it won't lead you to the growth that you require to have. It won't lead you to feel comfortable eventually with the situation that you're into. Perfect. That's amazing. I think
Yeah.
that's
So,
really, really nice. So,
yeah,
can
it's
you
my
give some
favorite.
example? Can you give some example? Oh,
Mhm.
somebody asked. Can you give some examples on this? So that
Okay,
people,
example on the A's, right?
yeah, people are loving it.
Uh,
So many comments only
oh
on this
wow.
A point.
Oh wow, lovely. That's nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about anxiety and give an example with that. Maybe that will be more effective since that's the conversation, right?
That's
So
perfect.
I spoke about comparison. What
Right.
are we doing when we are comparing ourselves? Which A are we using here? It's a common question.
Okay.
Are we
Uh,
accepting, adjusting, altering, or avoiding?
so I would ask people who are on live to respond to this
Yeah,
question.
that
When you
would be
are
nice.
comparing, which of the A are you using in that situation?
Hmm.
So let's give a situation. So there is somebody uh, who's comparing himself with his
Hmm.
colleague, and he is
Correct.
constantly thinking whether he's good enough or not good enough. And so let's talk about this person when he's doing the comparison. What do you guys think? Which A the person is using? Accepting is somebody saying.
Okay.
Is it accepting?
Do you want me to say,
No,
do you want me
somebody
to
will be
answer
saying
it? Are we
alter.
waiting?
No, we are waiting. We're
Hmm.
waiting for people because
Okay,
someone's
good, good, good. This is
Jigyasa said
interesting.
alter. I know. Jigyasa said altering. Manpreet said accepting.
Hmm.
Taskin said depends on the comparison. Depends on the
Hmm.
situation. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
One
so
more
like you
reply.
mentioned,
We will
okay.
wait for one more reply and then we will have you
Uh,
answer the question. Anybody typing, anybody replying? Yes. Alia, Alia is saying avoiding. So what do you
mhm.
what do you think it is?
Okay. One of them did reply correctly though. I think it comparison makes you alter yourself. Alter. You're making
Right.
changes that you don't need to make. You're trying to match up either to that person's level of, let's say if they're good at something, they're doing something well. Either you're altering to get better or you're
Mm-hmm.
altering because you demean yourself. You make yourself feel worse. Correct?
So true,
So
so
either
true.
way, there is an alteration, Aditi, in the mind. You're altering your mind, you're altering your body, your confidence level is altered, your
Right.
self-esteem is altered. What is
You
ideal in this situation? Sorry, you were saying something.
I say you alter because you want to fit into their standard, the way
Correct.
acceptable standard. So I think what you
Correct.
require to do here is accept yourself for who you are before you go down the comparison path.
Yes. So one thing that you will do is you accept yourself, and the other thing that you do is you avoid comparison because
Okay.
you have to understand that the comparison you're trying to have here
Also
is
in
not
your head.
making you better.
It's
It's
also
in
in
your
your
head, absolutely.
head.
Absolutely. So I think accepting yourself and avoiding because you go to work every day, you meet a million people out there. Forget work. I think the worst comparisons happen at home between
Yeah.
siblings. A relative can make you feel like nonsense compared to your other sibling, or make your other sibling feel like nonsense compared to you, or
So
compare
what do
you to
you
another
do?
cousin.
So
I
how do you
avoid.
apply
It's my favorite.
how do you apply this when other person is doing it? You're not comparing. You're very happy about yourself and now someone else is comparing you and that is triggering you and that is making you feel uncomfortable. How do you deal with that?
Uh, One thing is, Aditi, that when, we spoke about judgment also. So let me just
Right.
bring that up here.
Yeah.
One of the ways people feel judged is because they are in the habit of judging others.
Right.
So now coming back to what you said, my usual answer to this is that when I'm not comparing, I'm not fearing that feeling of being compared. Hence, if somebody else does it, it really doesn't bother me. Similar to judgment. The minute you personally, you go to an Indian wedding, it's the epitome of judgments. You will find people judging everything that you're doing. So,
The
you get
best
my
was like
point.
everything was okay, पर खाने में मजा नहीं आया. मतलब दाल बराबर
Right.
नहीं थी.
एग्जैक्टली माई पॉइंट और वो भी हम जो जजमेंट जो लोग करते हैं दैट इज फाइन दैट इज द वे दे टेक देयर टेक ऑन लाइफ बट इफ you realize you're holding a plate that these poor people have paid for, they've invited
Exactly.
you, and it's kind of
Exactly.
shameful, it's kind of a pity, you're discussing who's going to get along and how long this relationship will last
I
and whether
know.
the diamonds and the clothes are good enough. And that is why people fear to what level and what extent they need to do a wedding because they're so used to judging others.
That's so
Right?
true.
Right.
So
So
I know
my point is you don't do it.
I'm gonna say two things on this. Okay, somebody spoke. A very close friend of mine. She is, I think, 70 years old, and we were
Mm-hmm.
discussing something about judgment. And she was a principal for 30 years in a school in South Bombay. So she has dealt with so many teachers and parents. So, her advice or anything that she speaks about is so solid. Like, that she's speaking from that experience. So we are having a conversation, general, we are talking about judgment. And she said, but if you decide to not judge someone else, anybody, then you will not judge them for judging you too. And I'm like, that's so powerful because, we say, I'm not judging you. Why are you judging me?
Right.
But in your mind, you're judging the other person for judging you. She said, if you're really, really committed to non-judgmental approach, then you do not judge the person for judging you too. What you're saying in terms
Exactly.
of comparison, that's so valid.
Right. It's like this, if I can give you an analogy quickly on this one. If
Yes, please.
I'm if I'm calling you to my house, okay? And I by nature I'm a saint, I'm a priest. So I'm going to have you over for a nice dinner or lunch or whatever, enjoy with you. Once you go away, what do you think I'm going to do? Am I going to look around? Am I going to look at my house? Am I going to reminisce the time that I've spent with you, or am I going to feel irritated about you coming over?
Ideally, I would hope that you think about it and enjoy that time instead of
Right,
like,
exactly. Right. I'm a little bit saintly, so naturally I'm going to see the more the more Zen sort of aspect of this. So I'm happy with your company, and we've had a good time. Now I'm a thief.
hmm.
All right, but thieves can have friends, and you're still my friend, so I've still invited you over, and we're having
I'm
dinner,
very
and you leave.
non-judgmental about you. It's okay.
Right? Thank you. But when you leave the house, I'm a thief. What's the first thing I will do when you leave
Check
my
whether
house?
you whether I have taken or stolen something or not. So true.
Yeah, that's because I'm a
My
thief, not you.
perspective. My perspective.
Right?
So everything that we look at is actually how we are processing the whole thing.
Absolutely. So I really believe in a lot of mind conditioning and a lot of reframing. There's a lot of cognitive reframing one needs to do simply because of what you mentioned earlier in this conversation, the training that we've got. And a
Right.
large part of our training hasn't, I won't say it's been right or wrong. I just say that it's been very non-perspective,
True.
right? So that's exactly what we need, a little bit of reframing in the head.
That's really interesting. I'm so happy that everybody who's joining in are getting like real value and real specific tool to use. It's always amazing to try out new tools, and I feel if you still feel anxious about a situation, when you go and journal tomorrow or today, try these models. We spoke about two things. One, we spoke about three sources of causing anxiety and stress, and we spoke about four
Right.
approaches to deal with it. So anytime you're struggling with it, ask yourself this trigger, and we speak a lot about trigger on the platform. So if this is a trigger of my anxiety, is it about me comparing somebody, myself with someone, or me buying into that comparison? Is it about my judgment? What was the first point? We spoke about three.
Overthinking,
Overthinking. Am
overthinking.
I, am I ruminating or overthinking about what has happened? and what is the cause? So where is it coming from? And now what do I do? And I speak about 4 years. I think it's a
Yeah.
really, really nice thing. Is there anything
Thanks,
else
Aditi.
would you like to share before we conclude today's conversation?
Yes. So I feel in the moment, a lot of people they get all worked up, and of course the triggers, they don't allow your physiological aspects to process what is going on. So
Right.
you need to understand. Each one needs to understand simply that taking a deep breath in that moment is extremely powerful. Simply because the brain is not getting enough oxygen, and
Right.
the body is just responding to that security guard we spoke about, the amygdala. So we are in that flight, fright, or freeze response.
Yes.
Give your brain the oxygen it needs, and in that moment in your present, ask yourself what is in your control and what is not. If you can truly answer that in that moment, you will find yourselves not as worried or not as anxious as you usually do find yourselves. So just
I
what's in
feel,
your control, what's not.
I look at anxiety a lot from the need and the desire to control the situation. Now, there are things we are in control of, and then there are things we become controlling about. And
Mm-hmm.
the line between that creates the anxiety or non-anxiety response. And the breathing patterns is a crucial part of graphotherapy too. So I'm so happy that you spoke about it. It is a
Thank God, I'm
magical,
matching your
magical tool.
graphology thoughts. That's pretty cool.
It is coach calling coach. Yesterday we spoke about it, right? It's A to Z,
Yeah.
Aditi to Zarina. So we're
Like
totally doing.
literally, yes, yes, totally. But I think
Complete.
people should just, yeah, sorry.
Somebody's asking a question. Complete your sentence, then I'll go for it.
I just feel people need to start focusing on their journey and less of the people around them. Life just changes. Everything changes.
That's so true. So that connects to the next question. Manpreet is
Mhm.
asking how to deal with self-doubt when literally it becomes a roadblock.
Okay. Self-doubt comes from the fact that we trust ourselves very little. And a big chance of that comes also from the fact that, you have been allowing others to do a lot of decision making for you. If you see your graph, you are not sure of the decisions you make. You probably fear making a wrong decision, and hence self doubt kind of creeps in. It also comes from a lot of physical aspects, what you've been told in your childhood, what you tell yourself, right? So, yes, it's a roadblock and it can really change the way your mind functions. But one of the ways to deal with self doubt is doing certain affirmations and making a conscious decision of taking decisions. Even in a week, if Manpreet, right? So even in a week, if she decides that, I'm going to take a decision, right or wrong, it's my
Hmm.
decision. Allow the self doubt to at least start eliminating, break it down. What do you do with a tree or something big? You don't eat everything depending on the size it is. You will eat it bit by bit as much as
Yes.
fits in your mouth. So break down your self doubt, break down that block. Start with some morning affirmations. Tell yourself that you can make decisions, you're good at decision making, that you're beautiful. And when I say beautiful, I don't mean that because somebody is ugly you say you're beautiful. It means that you feel beautiful from within, you feel good from within, things like
Hmm.
that. Allow yourself to feel confident about the kind of things you say. Don't go back and retract and regret. That is one of the reasons why self doubt really takes a large part of you.
So
So
true.
simply, if Manpreet, you start simply just making sure that in a week you consciously take one decision or do one thing out of your own choice, right? Without doubting yourself,
Hmm.
and tell yourself that I'm going to take a decision and make it right. All right, I'm going to take a decision and make it right. You will slowly and steadily kind of break that block.
So it's actually a small step at a time. You take one step and you reassure yourself,
Also,
and then you take one more. And that's how we rewire the brain, right? Because the brain is
yeah.
wired in self-doubt because you have thought in self-doubt for so many years or months or so for so long that becomes
Hmm.
the natural response. So as you're saying, with every small decision and choice, you can break the conditioning. Two more
Right.
questions we have.
Okay.
Somebody, Jigyasa is asking any tip for ignoring or in our A model, avoiding toxic people in family, especially with whom you live 24 by 7,
Ah, see,
especially
that's
in the
the whole
lockdown.
beauty. especially in the lockdown. That's the beauty of the A. Now you can't ignore the people and you can't avoid the people you're living with. And that is why you're stressing out. Okay. What do you do? If I'm talking about family members, then first and foremost, set your boundaries. Okay. We do not know how to say no. We do not know where to draw the line. And that's why sometimes people intrude into our life or make our lives slightly more miserable than they should. Okay. So when it comes to toxic family members or dysfunctional families, like most of us are dysfunctional families, all said and done, we need to keep in mind that you set your boundaries, learn to say no, try not to avoid or ignore these toxic people because they're not going anywhere. You see,
So
you
if
try
you
and
try
ignore
to
them.
avoid, you try to avoid, and then you'll constantly feel that, oh shit, I can't avoid them, they're in my face. I can't avoid them, they're
Yes,
in my face, right?
absolutely. So that's going to make you feel miserable. It's going to, irritate you and bug you. So instead, what you can do is think to yourself for a brief moment that, okay, my dad's like this. These are things that I need to accept. These are things that I need to let go. All right, my mom's got these, or my relative or cousin or aunt, they have these silly questions they ask you, or, they want to know when you're getting married, or whether you've got a job, or whether you've got a baby. And yeah, this is common. It happens to all of us. But then after a point, you need to know first where to draw the line. Because in families, what really happens is, Aditi, and I realized that, I would say Asian families, moreover, we respect people because of the title, because of the
The
relation. We
relationship.
don't
True.
respect people because they are respectable. Okay. So that is something that needs to change. You be respectful, give respect, draw your boundaries, and don't try and change your family members for God's sake. Even as a coach, I haven't been able to do that very successfully. So I'm not going to advise you do that. You accept and you start adjusting, and whatever you cannot adjust to, you change for yourself, not for them.
Right. I mean, we can't change anybody. Like, people can change themselves, but you can't change anyone. That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, do you not have situations, Aditi, where, for me it happens if somebody is telling me, please, can you help my husband or somebody needs help? And I'm like, till that person doesn't want to come to me, I cannot help you. Doesn't that
Yeah.
happen with you?
Yeah, all the
Right?
time. And people always say that I think I'm okay. I think you should look at my wife's handwriting. She needs help. I'm like, right. I will evaluate both of you and then decide who needs help. But that's a very common thing to hear.
Very
Pankti
common.
Sap is asking, we can overcome this roadblock by asking negative and positive questions to ourselves. Is that a question? Because I don't get the context. What is positive and negative questions? Do you have any?
Did we talk about positive and negative questions?
No, we didn't. I think.
No, the question we spoke about is what is in control and what is not in control. That's
Right.
what we talked about.
Yes.
So yes, for instance, taking the previous example or the previous question, is a family member in your control? Can you really change anything? The answer is no,
Jigyasa is saying,
right?
what if this exact thing brings frustration? What do we do?
Meaning that you cannot change somebody.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Now you have to decide whether this is something that's supposed to frustrate you or you're supposed to accept. I think, Aditi, one of the strongest things and the strength in character is when a person knows what to let go and what to hold on to. So these are moments in your life that you have to ask yourself, Jigyasa, whether you have bigger things to worry about, bigger things to focus on in life, or are these rather petty things in the future? This will become petty for you at some point, and you'll be like, I wasted my time being frustrated about things that I couldn't change.
It's
So
true.
instead of wasting your time on something like that, wouldn't you rather spend your time focusing on your life and making the changes that are in your control? That's the question you must ask yourself.
Because things that are not in our control, no matter what we do, we can't change them. So
Can't.
we have a choice whether to really allow things to trigger us and then go down in that downward spiral or not. And I think that is the point we are trying to make here.
Absolutely. And I completely get that point because I think a lot of us do get frustrated with family and, the very non-changing environment around us can be very frustrating. It's true. But the fact is, you've got to step away. You've got to refocus and regroup your thoughts for your life because people will be there, they will talk. Sometimes family can be your worst critic and your best friend. So nonetheless, you need to just analyze who are the more important people of your family, whose thoughts matter to you, and how much. Set a boundary there and focus on achieving your goals, accomplish your life. What's the point of wasting time in things you can't change?
Now here it is slightly confusing also, because sometimes the person might be really, really important to you, but his perspective
Right.
might not be valid on that topic. It's not that, like, sometimes it happens with parents or spouses, that that person is really close, and it's not that I don't respect the person. I do, but because that
Hmm.
person is not aware of my situation or this new space that I'm dealing with, they might not get the context. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's understand that the person can still be very, very important, but you can then, may or may not involve that person's opinion in the area that you're dealing with.
So, for instance, Aditi, if you're looking at a spouse, somebody will say, I deeply love my spouse, but I'm having a hard time living with them, especially during lockdown. I've had many such. Okay.
So I
So,
love my spouse, but I don't like him or her anymore.
I don't want to live with them. I love them, but I don't want to live with them. And
Okay.
that's the whole point, because when you look at family, when you look at people, there is this basic old concept of live and let live. Now, in us, elders live, but they will not let you live. You've got to learn to live on your own. And that's where, you've got to break free from a lot of these things where I don't mean you've got to rebel, but I just mean you need to choose your space. You need to know where to draw the line. You need to know how much a person can intrude in your life, how much rights you give to people to speak in your life, to make decisions for you.
So
That
true.
changes the way you look at your life. And then obviously you realize I'm in control. Similar with a spouse, you're living with them. If you love them, love can mean different things. Love can mean understanding, compatibility. By itself, love is just affection. It really doesn't have that deeper meaning. Okay. So, how do you learn to love a person and also live with the things that are not so lovable about them? That's the beauty of a relationship, right? So, that's the same with family, I guess.
Yeah, I think to simplify and also conclude in this sense, the four A's come so handy. Like, if you really
Yeah.
put this to, let's take an assignment. Let's take 5 or 7 situations in our lives and let's apply all these four A's. Those who are joining
Sure.
in right now, can you just quickly speak about this 4A, and we will close our conversation on that note?
Mm-hmm. So, are we getting some answers or so?
No, no, I'm just asking
You
you
want
if
me
you can
to?
just, yeah,
Okay.
just like four
Summarize them.
points,
Okay.
summarize, because people are joining now, like in last
Uh-huh.
15 minutes, so they are not aware of whole
Okay.
conversation we have had. We're gonna have this live on this recording on the page, so you can definitely look at it, and you can reach out to Zarina. Her Instagram handle
Handle.
is Zarina Poonawalla, so you can find her. She has a wonderful podcast called Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. You can check it out on IVM Podcast and any other platform where you listen to podcasts from. It's really, really interesting. In one episode, she interviews people. In another, she talks about one particular issue and gives you ways and models to solve a problem, implement a solution. I really like that model, like both ways.
Thank
Good.
you. Thank you. And just for everyone, Aditi is on my show now. So this week I think Aditi, you're going to be your episode releases on Thursday, so everybody should tune in for that
Please,
one for
yes.
sure.
It was
Right?
all
Okay.
fun.
So let me give you the four A's again. Accept, adjust, or adapt, whatever you prefer. Alter and avoid. Okay. These four A's actually help you to identify a problem and deal with it without reacting to it. Okay. It helps you to respond to your situation and keeps you in charge of your situation. Now, when you're in charge of things, like you mentioned, a lot of your stress and anxiety comes from not being able to control. So, when you're in charge, automatically the feeling of worrying or stressing out reduces. So, keeping that in mind, what do you accept? Things that you must accept around you. Sometimes it's the kind of people that you are living with, but not if it's violent, not if it's abusive, not if it's financially draining. Draw the line there. What should you avoid? Avoid is my favorite, by the way, so I'm going to say avoid first. It's my favorite. Anything you don't understand, avoid it. I'm just saying that when you're thinking about judgments, comparisons, overthinking, you must absolutely think about alter. When you're thinking alter, what are we thinking about? What can you change? What can a person change? Can you change another? We've said this repeatedly today that we can't change another. We can help somebody. We can't change someone. So what do you change? You change yourself. You find what needs to change within you to deal with your environment, to deal with your surroundings, right? So there's accept, there's adjust. Adjust is when, for example, the outside temperature right now in the city, okay, it's hot. You will complain. You will say it's raining. There's that. You're stuck in traffic, not now, but eventually, before and after lockdown, things are going to remain the same. So, you're going to be stuck in traffic and you're thinking to yourself, cribbing, crying, whining. Okay. What do you need to do in that moment? Accept it and adjust to it. The weather's not changing, the traffic's not changing. Or change the timing of your commute. Find
Just
yourself another
alter.
time.
Yep.
You alter. So basically what you do is you need to identify which of the situation matches which of your environmental state, right? Once you know that, it's a trick. It's a little bit of conditioning. It's a trick. It's something you need to do intentionally. Once you do that, you will know that there is no one way of dealing with anything. What
Yes.
I need to probably alter, you need to accept, right?
That's so true. And
So
that's what makes it
it
so
really depends.
interesting, because we just try to copy the solutions that people are implementing
Yes,
without seeing whether it
yes,
is applicable for us or not. That's so true.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Zarina. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Some people are commenting, and I want to read this.
Sure.
Nikhilesh is saying the ultimate problem solver, Zarina.
Thank
And
you.
Jigyasa said, thank you so much. That really, really helped. Um, I think also Taskeen said that she really liked it somewhere in between. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for participating. That was really, really nice to have such involvement. And I hope to see you soon, and I hope to meet you in person. That has not happened with our this recording, but probably the next time we meet, we'll have more
Yes,
time
I do
to.
have pictures from our previous recordings. I probably will share those with you.
Yeah, please do that. Please do that. It would be nice.
Reminisce a little. Yes.
Yeah. And I think today is your second live in a day, so all the best for that.
Yeah.
What is it about? If somebody wants to join you for your live, what is
Sure.
this about?
So I'm talking to a very, very dear friend of mine. She does a lot of recommendations on makeup, and she wanted to have a conversation about how self-confidence or self-esteem is affected by makeup or not, or does it have? Is there a correlation between these two or not?
Amazing.
So
Most people do get
she's
affected that way.
Yes, yes. So she's in London, and we're going to work at. We're going live 6:30 IST. So our time 6:30 in India is the time we're going to go live. So yeah, thank you for warming me up. I'm feeling a little more confident about this whole live thing,
Oh,
Aditi. Thanks to you.
I don't think you require any help on this, but I think you're doing
No, I
great
do.
already.
So sweet. But
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Lovely, lovely talking to you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Aditi. Bye. All the best.
Wish you the same. Bye bye.